This is the safety gear and equipment I use to start out in smelting metal. Some of the items on the list is optional. The instructions were very simple to follow in setting up the USA Castmaster furnace. The first step was done off camera. You simply screw on the nut by hand and slightly tighten with vice grips or something similar. Insert the pipe into the hole, keeping the base flush with the opening as such. Hand tighten all 4 screws. Finish by slightly tightening with vice grips or something similar. I preheated the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit and let the crucible and graphite rod heat up for 1 hour. I tested out the laser thermometer to see if it was accurate, and it was pretty close. While the crucible is cooking, take this time to set up your workstation and make sure you'll have everything you'll need. It wasn't necessary to place your forge on concrete blocks. Make sure your fire brick is inside and ready to go. I'll be using the block on the right for my lid to avoid any burn marks on my garage floor. The bucket is for any slag removed from the forge. Have an ABC fire extinguisher nearby. Extra safety measure to have a water hose nearby as well. Make sure the propane is far away from the forge. Be careful in removing the crucible from your oven as it'll be heavier than you think. The graphite rod was obviously hot, but my gloves were able to handle it. Turn on the butterfly valve, open almost all the way. Make sure your red regulator valve is off, then turn on your propane tank. Now you can slightly turn on the regulator until you hear the gas hissing through the hose. Some people will have the idea of doing this to start up their forge. If you do, compact the paper so it doesn't burn up too quickly. I highly advise against lighting your forge this way, as the gas will accumulate quickly in your forge if you're not quick enough, and barbecue lighters or blow torches are much safer means. Do not extinguish the fire like this, as it will leave scorch marks on the floor if you care about that. Have a bucket of water nearby instead. Go ahead and increase the gas flow to the low temperature of around 700 degrees Fahrenheit. This valve controls the airflow of gas going into the forge. You'll have to mess with both to regulate the temperature. That paper's still smoldering, but no big deal. Boric acid or borax has been recommended for first-time crucibles to extend their life. I'm trying out this product to see if it works just as well. Fill the crucible to about 1/3. It doesn't have to be perfect. Also, some people recommend filling it before you insert it in the oven to dehydrate the powder. Go ahead and place your lid on and wait for about 10 minutes to let the crucible slowly get heated around 700 degrees. After 10 minutes, increase the temperature to about 1000 degrees Fahrenheit and wait another 5 to 10 minutes. That paper's still smoldering. I had to extinguish it. It would have been simpler to use a barbecue lighter or blowtorch and be less messy. You'll start to see green flames coming from the hole. It's not safe to inhale, so put on your PPE or personal protective equipment. This was the temperature right after 10 minutes passed on the right. Go ahead and increase the temperature further to around 1700 degrees to get the boric acid to melt. Be sure you're close by to watch the forge, but watch it from afar and not in the same vicinity. Also be wary of the ceiling temperature to not start a fire in your attic space. Watch for either paint warping or if it gets hotter than 160 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not only going to be hot, but toxic gases will start to accumulate in the ceiling, even with the door open. Having a simple box fan blowing towards the open door will suffice. But never have the fan blowing directly on you. With your PPE on, use a graphite stick to assess if the powder has become liquid, not a paste. Anything sticking to the stick should be placed directly on your blocks. Don't let it drip to the floor. After realizing it was only a paste and it wasn't hot enough, I increased the temperature further, which you now see the bright orange glow. It might take another 10 minutes. Go ahead and take the time to preheat your tongs. They will catch fire as the paint and other properties burn off. Never have cold equipment touch the crucible. This was after 10 minutes after reaching 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. Go ahead and increase it slightly further as it's still a pasty product. The product seemed to be liquid, so I went ahead and pulled it out. What you're going to do is swirl the liquid around to allow the boric acid to coat itself on the walls of the crucible. I pulled it out prematurely as it quickly started cooling to a paste again. I had to place it back in to remelt the coat back in again. The black piece that just snapped was hardened boric acid that turned into a glass piece that you see on the screen. Once you've coated the walls of the crucible, do your best to take out the leftover boric acid and pour it onto your concrete using either the graphite rod or even better, a metal spoon. Castmaster kit only included the black tongs, so I had to improvise by using vice grips to help manipulate the crucible, which only works when you're in a pinch. Most of the boric acid has been removed. It's recommended to let it cool for a day, so I let it cure. Once that's done, refire up the forge and begin smelting any metal of your choice. Today was going to be aluminum cans. Once all the cans are in, increase the temperature to above 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. produce a lot of slag. You don't need to remove any of it, like I did, right away. At least until it gets closer to the top. It'll make things easier. Also, you probably don't want to use a rod to remove the slag. It'll take way too long. When selecting the tool to remove slag, I prefer using one made of steel versus aluminum. I tested them using the magnet to see which would hold up better for long-term use. However, make sure your chosen tool is long enough to avoid your hand getting too close, as you'll see very quickly in this demonstration why wearing gloves is required. Luckily, these gloves can be removed very quickly. The glove's two fingers have been permanently warped as compared to the left one. But the gloves did their job and my hand is burn free. This is my tool of choice in removing slag. Be sure to get the longer version tongs, as it still manages to let the glove catch fire from the radiant heat. You'll know very quickly when it catches fire. Once you've gotten enough metal melted, preheat your molds by placing them on top of your forge. After a few minutes pass, you're going to hold them over the open flame like you're cooking marshmallows over a campfire by using your tongs for another few minutes. They should reach a temperature of at least 600 degrees before being used. My friend was getting married. At the last minute while I was working, I decided to use this aluminum being melted to make them a wedding present. Due to a lack of better tools, I had to improvise using these bricks to increase the height of my pouring. Be sure not to pour too high to avoid any metal splashing. Don't forget, anything on the blocks is considered hot. If you watch carefully, at 1612, you can see a tiny blob of metal splash back on the crucible. It's another reason to not wear shorts when doing this. When you're done smelting, turn off the gas to the forge and remove your ingot from the mold using your tongs. Just don't let the mold slam on the concrete. I have this plastic bucket of water cooling in the fridge. Don't let it drop to the bottom right away to avoid any plastic melting on the bottom. This should be safe to touch. Before you clean it up, wear goggles to avoid any metal dust getting into your eyes. These tools were not right for the job, as they kept kicking out from my grip. When you're polishing the ingot this way, make sure it's secured with the tool holding it down and not with your hands. This is where your chair should be when watching it from afar. We'll make this ingot into a wedding present another day.